When was the absolute last time you genuinely questioned one of your own deeply held beliefs, admitted you were dead wrong, and actually changed your mind? If your answer is, "It's been so long I can't even remember," then congratulations, this video was explicitly engineered for your stubborn brain. Think Again by Adam Grant is an elite survival manual for upgrading your critical thinking and judgment. In this book, Grant ruthlessly dissects the various dimensions of how we process thoughts, exposing the critical necessity of auditing and upgrading our outdated mental software. He provides actionable protocols to help you break free from the suffocating prison of a fixed mindset. The frameworks inside this book will forge you into a profound, agile thinker, equipping you to execute high-level decisions in both your career and your life. In today's video, we are going to dive into the core, brutal truths of Think Again and dissect the mind of its author, Adam Grant. Hi, to briefly explore the background of author Adam Grant and dive into the core, brutal truths of Think Again. Introducing author Adam Grant, born in 1981. Adam Grant has been recognized as the top-rated professor at the Wharton School for 7 consecutive years. He is ranked as one of the world's 10 most influential management thinkers by HR Magazine and was named to the list of the world's top 40 business professors under 40. He holds a bachelor's degree from Harvard University and a PhD from the University of Michigan. Adam has consulted for and spoken to a massive roster of elite clients, including Google, the NFL, Johnson & Johnson, and the United Nations. Beyond his rigorous academic research and teaching, he is a contributing op-ed writer for the New York Times and the host of the TED podcast Work Life. His explosive debut book, Give and Take, was a massive New York Times bestseller. Translated into 30 languages, it dominated the 2013 Best Books lists on Amazon, the Financial Times, and the Wall Street Journal. His second book, Originals: How Nonconformists Moved the World, also fiercely held its spot at the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Introducing Think Again, published in 2021. Think Again was crowned the best non-fiction book of the year by The Washington Post. It also dominated the top tiers of highly practical, cognitive psychology books, earning massive praise from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Bloomberg. Upon its release, Think Again received a tidal wave of positive feedback from readers for the deeply actionable insights it delivers. Book structure: the book is brutally divided into 4 main sections. Part 1. Individual rethinking, updating our own views. Part 2. Interpersonal rethinking, opening other people's minds. Part 3. Collective rethinking, creating communities of lifelong learners. Part 4. Conclusion, escaping tunnel vision and reconsidering our career plans. Book summary. Adam Grant violently kicks off the book with the terrifying story of the Mann Gulch forest fire in 1949. A squad of 15 elite smoke jumpers parachuted out of a plane with the mission to crush a massive wildfire. The squad's tactical plan was to dig a trench, encircle, and isolate the inferno, and redirect it toward an area stripped of fuel. However, the situation spiraled completely out of control. The fire exploded across the valley, charging directly at the smoke jumpers. The flames roared over 30 feet high, spreading at a speed capable of incinerating an area the length of 2 football fields in less than a minute. Facing absolute catastrophe, the squad burned every ounce of energy, sprinting up a brutally steep, rocky incline, tearing through knee-high grass on rugged terrain. They were less than 200 yards from the ridge. Safety was agonizingly close. But the squad commander executed an action so seemingly insane it paralyzed the entire team. Instead of sprinting for his life, he stopped, bent down, pulled out a matchbook, struck a match, and intentionally set the grass right in front of him on fire. He then screamed at his men to step into the burnt-out perimeter he had just created as an escape route. Naturally, absolutely no one listened to him. They thought he had lost his mind and was actively trying to kill them. The brutal result: only the commander, Dodge, and 2 other men who managed to reach the ridge survived. Every other member of the squad burned to death. Why did the commander survive while the others perished? After the disaster, extensive forensic research was conducted. Ultimately, scholars realized that the fatal error of the perished firefighters stemmed from the deeply ingrained reflexes drilled into their training. In the mindset of a firefighter, you are programmed to extinguish fires, absolutely not to start new ones. And to survive, you are programmed to run away from the fire, never toward it. Even seasoned experts who had spent their entire lives studying wildfires couldn't fathom the radical tactic of lighting an escape fire to create a safe, burned-out buffer zone. The 2 surviving members testified that they had never been trained to survive an inferno using such a method. According to the author, the singular reason the commander survived was his extreme mental agility, his ability to rapidly reframe the situation, override his hardwired instincts, and break completely free from the rigid confines of his training. Let's look at another classic example: the boiled frog experiment. If you drop a frog into a pot of violently boiling water, it will instantly launch itself out. But if you place the frog in lukewarm water and slowly turn up the heat, the frog will stay put and boil to death. The frog dies because it completely lacks the situational awareness to recognize the creeping threat until it is far too late. Most of us have absolute, unquestioning faith in the outcome of the boiled frog story. We never interrogate or doubt its scientific validity. However, the truth is rarely what we assume it to be. To test this theory, Adam Grant actually reviewed the boiled frog experiment. The empirical results were the exact opposite of the myth. A frog thrown into boiling water is severely scalded and physically unable to escape. Conversely, a frog in water that is slowly heated has a vastly higher survival rate because it will immediately jump out the exact second the water becomes intolerably hot. This experiment is a glaring, brutal proof that when we hear a compelling narrative and accept it as truth, we rarely bother to interrogate the accuracy of the data. The things we blindly trust and assume are absolute facts often do not reflect objective reality. This rigid mindset traps us in the suffocating rut of conventional thinking. We are heavily biased toward clinging to old viewpoints rather than adopting new ones. We fundamentally hate the discomfort of thinking too hard. Rethinking, challenging our own core beliefs, requires us to bravely accept that the truth is volatile, and that the things we once believed were undeniable facts might now be completely wrong. Changing your mind is absolutely not easy, but it is a critical survival skill if you want to navigate the violent volatility of the modern world. According to the author, the act of rethinking is just as crucial as developing intelligence and acquiring new knowledge. Part 1. Individual rethinking. In this section, the author clinically dissects the 4 distinct mindsets we default to when interacting with others, the preacher. This persona takes over when our beliefs and core values are threatened. We relentlessly deliver sermons and arguments to violently defend our personal viewpoints. The prosecutor. When we spot flaws in someone else's argument, we weaponize logic to aggressively prove them wrong and prove ourselves right. The politician. This mindset emerges when we desperately want to win over an audience. We hyperfocus on securing approval and validation at any cost. The scientist. In this mode, we maintain profound humility and acknowledge the severe limits of our own knowledge. We focus entirely on gathering hypotheses, auditing data, and constantly stress testing our understanding against the world and others using new evidence. Every mindset has its utility. But the author strongly urges everyone to aggressively cultivate the mindset of the scientist. The scientist mindset forces you to build intellectual humility. Learn healthy skepticism, remain fiercely objective, rely purely on comprehensive data, and refuse to jump to conclusions when faced with unverified information. You cannot stubbornly treat your own knowledge as absolute truth, acting like a preacher. Obsessively try to destroy other people's arguments without thinking, acting like a prosecutor. Or pander to the crowd, acting like a politician. Operating as a politician, prosecutor, or preacher drags you directly into the lethal traps of confirmation bias and desirability bias. Confirmation bias means you only see data that proves what you already believe. Desirability bias means you only see what you want to see. The vast majority of us are infected with both of these biases. Holding these biases doesn't just prevent us from deploying our intelligence. It actively warps our intellect and forces us to execute catastrophic decisions. The author also exposes a hidden, highly toxic bias lurking inside everyone. The "I'm not biased" bias. This delusion tricks people into believing they are vastly more objective than everyone else. Highly intelligent people are exceptionally vulnerable to this trap. The smarter they are, the more subjectively arrogant they become, and the harder it is for them to spot their own fatal errors. Next, the author forces the reader to audit the spectrum of confidence versus competence. If you possess massive confidence, but severe incompetence, you suffer from the armchair quarterback syndrome. You see this in aggressive sports fans who genuinely believe they know more about football than the elite coach on the sidelines? The exact opposite of the armchair quarterbackies, the imposter syndrome. This strikes when your confidence is pathetically low compared to your actual high-level competence. Imposter syndrome means you fundamentally believe you do not deserve the success you have bled and grinded to achieve. Even when everyone around you praises your value and accomplishments, you actively deny it because of a deeply pessimistic, distorted view of yourself. Furthermore, this section meticulously breaks down how you can simultaneously learn and explore while maintaining a confident, decisive, yet profoundly humble and non-arrogant demeanor, using highly specific case studies. It heavily emphasizes executing thought experiments and deploying open-ended questions to extract superior answers and results. The author provides tactical examples of how to diffuse hostile, aggressive patterns and foster open communication. A highly effective strategy to deploy when you realize a discussion is devolving into an attack is, "I'm disappointed with the trajectory of this discussion. Are you feeling frustrated too? I hope you realize my proposal is reasonable. Am I misunderstanding something?" Or, if you are facing a nuclear conflict, force yourself to maintain a slow, deliberate, calm tempo and ask the opponent, what evidence would you need to actually change your mind? If they respond that nothing will change their mind, and you realize the conversation has hit a dead end, the author advises you to stop arguing logic and actively choose silence. Pushing further will not solve the problem, and will likely detonate the situation entirely. In Part 2, the author also breaks down the dark art of listening to generate positive influence. True listening isn't just shutting your mouth, it is an elite skill set of asking calibrated questions. It begins by showing genuine curiosity in the other person's concerns, rather than hunting for an angle to judge them or assert your own dominance. Part 3. Collective. Rethinking Part 3 tackles the brutal mechanics of navigating multidimensional problems in highly polarized discussions, where finding common ground seems impossible. It guides students on how to ruthlessly interrogate textbook knowledge and shares blueprints for building a culture of rethinking in the workplace. Social media forces us into contact with radical new perspectives. But it is also a radioactive wasteland of garbage, noise, and fake news. The author emphasizes that merely being exposed to multiple viewpoints does not automatically trigger rethinking. In fact, it often actively fuels our emotional, irrational biases. The preacher questions whether a viewpoint is morally righteous. The prosecutor interrogates whether it aligns with justice. The politician judges rigidly and aggressively. Simply presenting two opposing viewpoints doesn't guarantee a correct solution. It often just creates more chaos. Psychologists have a specific term for this cognitive failure: binary bias. Binary bias is the toxic human urge to seek false clarity. By aggressively oversimplifying a highly complex issue into two distinct, black and white categories. A brilliant quote by Robert Benchley perfectly exposes the absurdity of binary bias. There are two kinds of people in the world: those who believe there are two kinds of people in the world, and those who don't. Therefore, the author argues that when confronting any complex problem, we must arm ourselves with multiple, diverse lenses. We must rely on information backed by rigorously verified scientific data. Only by possessing the most brutally objective information can we force our opponents to rethink their own positions. The same rule applies to education. The content in textbooks is not infallible, yet in our current educational system, students passively absorb textbook material as absolute gospel, completely failing to proactively research or interrogate the knowledge. Memorizing the curriculum might secure them straight A's, but it absolutely does not guarantee they will survive, let alone succeed in their future careers. A profound discovery the author made during his teaching career occurred when he split students into small groups and demanded they record a podcast challenging a widely accepted method, such as defending a contrarian viewpoint or violently debating a core principle taught in class. The brutal result: the students who scored A's were the perfectionists, those who historically crushed their peers in academics but ultimately achieved nothing exceptional in their actual careers. This finding proves that, across all industries, raw academic grades are a terrible, unreliable metric for predicting a person's ultimate success. Achieving elite academic performance usually requires mastering a rigid, predictable way of thinking. But in a brutal, real-world career, your thinking must be constantly detonated, innovated, and upgraded. Another common barrier holding back top-tier students or highly skilled colleagues is their severe reluctance to take risks. They are paralyzed by the fear of being wrong. According to Adam Grant, the fear of being wrong is one of the most massive, suffocating barriers to rethinking for all of us. Ultimately, education is not about blindly hoarding information and data. True education is the relentless process of learning, interrogating outdated facts, choosing to innovate, sharpening your mental agility, and mastering deep comprehension. Building a culture of rethinking in the workplace. Rethinking is not just a solo sport. It is a collective superpower that relies heavily on the overarching culture of the organization. Rethinking thrives in a workplace that fosters a learning culture. This is an environment where operators aggressively support each other in learning, exploring the unknown, ruthlessly questioning current protocols, and cultivating a ravenous curiosity for new ideas. On an individual level, we must possess the profound humility to admit we are constantly in a state of learning, while maintaining the ironclad accountability to continuously audit our own actions and decisions. Part 4. Conclusion: Escaping. Tunnel vision: we pour our blood, sweat, and soul into a master plan, only to realize it is spectacularly failing. Our default human reaction is never to rethink it. Instead, we stubbornly double down, violently throwing more capital and resources at a dying project. This toxic psychological trap is called escalation of commitment. Escalation of commitment is the fatal tendency to blindly cling to an obsolete decision, bleeding money, effort, and time into a doomed strategy or project, rather than having the courage to pivot. In other words, throwing good money after bad. Empirical evidence shows startup founders stubbornly holding on to failing strategies instead of abandoning them. Sports managers and coaches continuously throwing massive contracts at underperforming players simply because of their transfer value, resulting in a catastrophic waste of money, effort, and time. In our career trajectories, we are also highly vulnerable to becoming victims of identity foreclosure. This trap is usually set when we are very young. Through the classic question, adults ask the moment we can speak. What do you want to be when you grow up? The naive answer we give as children when we are heavily manipulated by our environment and lack any real-world experiences, incredibly dangerous. We easily and mistakenly lock onto that naive childhood answer as our permanent, defining identity. A few kids have modest dreams, most are forced into dreams dictated by family tradition, and others have delusional fantasies completely divorced from reality. But when we grow up, and our hearts and souls are brutally battered and reshaped by the real world, we finally wake up. We realize we might lack the raw talent to pursue the passions we need to leave behind. Or we face the bitter, agonizing truth that our passions simply cannot feed us. The absolute most critical truth we all must internalize is this: a career is just a job you execute. It is absolutely not a declaration of your core identity. By adopting this agile mindset, we become radically more open-minded, violently ready to explore diverse paths in life, and ultimately discover the massive potential hidden within us. This is an incredibly profound and valuable perspective. Finally, the author urges everyone to schedule regular career checkups, a practice that should be expanded to all other sectors of life. For example, your career audit questions should look like this: when did you first become interested in your current field, and how have you mutated since then? Have you hit a plateau where there is absolutely nothing left to learn in your current role? Is it time to execute a radical pivot? Scheduling routine audits for your career and your life will force you to interrogate your past commitments and inject healthy skepticism into your current decisions. What you discover on this journey can liberate you from the suffocating prison of a stagnant environment and forge you into the absolute apex version of yourself. Rethinking and constantly upgrading your knowledge and perspectives is the ultimate tool for extracting maximum value out of life. To summarize, here are the 3 most massive, high-value takeaways from Adam Grant's Think Again. Deep dive into cognitive errors, biases, and blind spots. The book arms you with the tactical knowledge and tools to recognize the absolute necessity of adapting and upgrading your viewpoints. Destroy the comfort zone. The book aggressively pushes you to confront and shatter the cozy comfort of your obsolete beliefs, massively accelerating your personal evolution and growth. Real-world application. The highly engaging stories and brutal real-world case studies are flawlessly integrated with theories across various fields: learning, sports, research, writing, allowing you to visualize and weaponize the principles of rethinking in your daily grind. Who is this book for? This book is for everyone. There are absolutely no restrictions. Whether you are a student, a corporate grinder, a top-tier executive, or anyone obsessed with upgrading their mental software, mastering their beliefs, violently challenging outdated dogmas, and optimizing their critical thinking to dominate in life and business. It is a massively valuable manual for rewiring your brain.